What's more likely this weekend? Hutchinson, 2 or more sacks of Kyler Murray, or Murray, 2 or more touchdown passes?
I'm going to go with Murray 2 or more touchdown passes, because I honestly, I've watched a lot of Kyler Murray play, from covering the NFC West to now. And I've never been as impressed with his game as I was last week. I mean, the way he connected with Marvin Harrison Jr. in the first quarter, I thought was exquisite, and he makes that play. And the best part of that clip, in that play, honestly, is something you can't see from the overhead view, but he starts celebrating like Steph Curry when he knows a 3 is going in. After he threw that ball to the end zone, he's like, oh yeah, that's a touchdown. And he puts his hand up and he starts celebrating. Like, Kyler Murray looked really good last week. I was very impressed. And so it's not that I'm not impressed with Hutchinson and Detroit, but I think that what they're doing in Arizona right now and the way they protected him and the way that Murray has shown that he can escape sacks, right? As we were just watching, I would say Murray 2 or more touchdown passes, Mike.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you got to catch Kyler Murray. And yeah. Baker Mayfield more elusive and slippery than he gets credit for. And here's another thing, too. I'd forgotten about this. I remember when Kyler Murray was entering the draft in 2019, we interviewed him at the Super Bowl, and Baker Mayfield must have called him 7 times during the 15 minutes we were with him. I suspect that at some point this week, Baker gave Kyler everything he picked up about the Lions, the pass rush, Aidan Hutchinson, and one of the reasons Hutchinson had all those sacks last week, the starting right tackle was out for the Buccaneers, and the replacement got completely dominated all game long by Aidan Hutchinson. So I just think, number one, Hutchinson isn't going to have, basically free release, and it's not going to be as easy to swallow up Kyler Murray. And that would apply versus any other quarterback. It's not going to be as easy to get Kyler Murray under control and on the ground.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I think with all due respect, Aidan Hutchinson, right? Like this is a really good player who is emerging into a great player. That's exactly what you want, with somebody who's had the experiences that he's had in his first few years in the league. Now he is ascending into that next tier, right? Where we can talk about him as one of those dominant guys. You don't get 4.5 sacks, even if it is against the turnstile, without being dominant. So that's one of those things where I think Hutchinson can still have a dominant year, but when you're going against a guy who's got the kind of speed and elusiveness that Kyler Murray does, it's very hard to bring him down when you're coming off the edge.
Ravens-Cowboys, one of the great games of the weekend. Tom Brady back.
The Brady game.
He's got the Cowboys every week.
In Arlington.
He may as well. Yeah. I mean, why is he buying a piece of the Raiders? He should be buying a piece of the Cowboys. And I guess if the league is going to keep you, think of it this way: if the league is going to keep you from going to practice and attending production meetings and having any access because of the fact that you're trying to buy a piece of the Raiders, why not just do every Cowboys game? You build it every week. He's basically the de facto official Cowboys broadcaster. So Ravens and Cowboys. Ravens have a good history against Dallas. They closed out the old Texas Stadium by beating the Cowboys on a Saturday in 2008, late in the season. What's more likely in this one? Derrick Henry has 2 or more touchdowns rushing, or Dak Prescott has 300 or more passing yards. Dallas has allowed an NFL worst 5 rush touchdowns this season. Baltimore has allowed an NFL worst 257 passing yards per game. So what's more likely? Henry, 2 or more touchdowns on the ground, or Dak, 300 or more passing yards?
I'm going to go with Dak because I think that this is going to be one of those high-scoring games, and they're going to need to throw it around the yard a little bit more than Derrick Henry's going to be able to run it. Like, I think it's more likely Lamar Jackson has 2+ touchdowns than Derrick Henry because, like, Lamar Jackson might be running all over the field just based on some of the things that we've seen, right? And then Dak Prescott's going to have to be able to throw in order to keep up. So I'll go with Dak Prescott on that one.
Yeah, I will too. This is one of those, and Pete will select 2 options where I'd like to say neither. But if I have to pick one or the other, I'll say Dak Prescott with 300+ passing yards, although I don't feel great about either one. Eagles at the Saints. Great game coming. Eagles, short week, going on the road. Disappointing loss to the Falcons on Monday night. Saints 2-0, looking incredible on offense. What's more likely? Saquon Barkley of Philadelphia has 150 or more yards from scrimmage, or Alvin Kamara does for the Saints?
You go, you're hitting Pete. Like, I think this is a good question because I'd almost like to say both, but I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara because that Eagles defense, man, I don't know what the hell is going on there, but maybe it was just the fact that Matt Patricia was in the building and they just decided that they had to crumble, when they had the chance to stand up and in the game, and they don't. I mean, that last minute drive that Kirk Cousins put together was ridiculous. I mean, I don't understand defensively what in the world they were doing. Like, what has happened to Vic Fangio? So, yeah, like I said, maybe it was the fumes of Matt Patricia. We're talking about fumes of former Patriots earlier. But that defense, there's something wrong there. And I think that the Saints, who have looked better than anybody on offense, and frankly, they've been the best team in the NFL over the course of the first couple of weeks. I mean, if you want to say Kamara's the MVP, I could, through the first 2 weeks of the season, which is nothing. But if you want to say that, I can go with it. If you want to say Derrick Carr, who has been really, really good, is the MVP through the first 3 weeks, I can go with that too. 2 weeks, I should say. But, I think that in that way, I feel like the Saints have a good shot of really dismantling whatever is going on with the Eagles right now.
The run defense for the Eagles was bad all game long. The pass defense got exposed on that final drive. And for those of you who weren't watching on Tuesday, Myles included, or he would have known this. When the show starts 4 a.m. his time, so I don't expect him to have seen it live. But Devin McCourty had a couple of great points about it. Number one, his observation that it looked like the Eagles were playing scout team defense on a team that was specifically told, we need to build confidence for the starting offense, let them kind of go down the field in the 2-minute drill, right? And
yes.
And the other thing that we stumbled onto was, I think the Eagles defense shut it down. They thought the game was over, and they couldn't start up again. They listened to Scott Van Pelt. Must have been standing on their sideline when he declared the game essentially over at the 2-minute warning. And Devin told the story about Super Bowl 51 when the Patriots tied the game up and they went to overtime and won the coin toss and got the ball. The mood on the sideline was, to quote Matt Hasselbeck, we want the ball and we're going to score.
Yes.
We know that didn't happen for Hasselbeck and the Seahawks that day in Green Bay, but he said Matt Patricia, there's that name again. Matt Patricia came over and got in their faces and said, basically, I'm paraphrasing, get your asses over there and get ready to play. Get ready to play. And who was on the sideline? Because we know where Fangio is during the games. He's up in the booth. Who was on the sidelines telling the Eagles players when everyone thought the Eagles had they'd won the game, get your asses ready to play, because they did not look ready to play. But I agree with your point. The defense, there's something still wrong with the Eagles. Whatever was wrong last year, I don't know if it's the same thing, but there's something wrong with the Eagles. So I'm with you. Alvin Kamara more likely than Saquon, although both possibly could. Texans at the Vikings. Which more likely? The Texans defense has 4 or more sacks, or the Vikings defense has 4 or more sacks. The Vikings have 11 so far this year. Houston is second in the NFL with 9. What's more likely? 4 or more sacks, Houston or Minnesota?
This one's kind of tough because, I have good faith in both of these offensive schemers, against whatever defense it is. And so, Bobby Slowick has a bit of an advantage here in some way because he saw the offense he basically runs just play the Vikings defense last week with the 49ers. Obviously, he came over there from the 49ers to the Houston Texans to be their OC. So I guess I'll say still Vikings anyway, because CJ Stroud is a younger quarterback. Although Sam Darnold, I don't necessarily have faith in at times. So I'll just go with my first instinct and say it's going to be the Vikings defense.
I think it's going to be the Vikings defense simply because they're playing in Minnesota. It's going to be loud, and they're going to have that advantage. If the Texans have to go silent count, you have a little more of an edge getting off the ball. And it's that Flores defense, and it's every week. It's funny. Shanahan was a little defensive because for 2 straight years now, the Brian Flores defense has completely confounded the 49ers offense, and Shanahan's position is they're doing this to everybody. They're doing it to everybody. You don't know what they're going to do. They disguise everything. You don't know where the pressure's coming from. And by the time you figure out where the hole is, it's too late. So, yeah, the Vikings defense has been really one of the biggest surprises, especially when you consider how bad they were 2 years ago, how good they've been last year, and now this year they seem to be even better, even though Danielle Hunter defected from the Vikings and signed with the Texans. You got two former Vikings coming back to town this weekend in Hunter and the guy that authored the Minneapolis Miracle in the 2017 postseason against the Saints, Stephon Diggs. All right, last one. Bears
Case
at the Colts.
Keenum too now.
Case Keenum's on IR, season-ending IR, so we're not going to. We won't see him in the game. He might be on the sidelines,
he's on
hanging
the
out with Matt Patricia, but he won't be. He won't be playing in the game, much like Patricia won't be either. Okay. Bears at the Colts. Oh, and Patricia, he probably never wants to go back to U.S. Bank Stadium because that's where the Eagles beat the Patriots in Super Bowl 52. Caleb Williams throws a touchdown pass, or Anthony Richardson, the NFL's version of a roller coaster that may or may not stay on the tracks, completes 50% of his passes. What's more likely?
I'm going to go with Caleb Williams throwing a touchdown pass. And, it's interesting because none of these rookie quarterbacks have done it yet. And I like Anthony Richardson. I like watching Anthony Richardson, but that Bears defense could be a real problem for him because, like you said, he's the roller coaster. So, hell, he might, rear back and yeet it, 60 yards down the field again. But I just feel like this is the time now where, because of how, let's say, not great the Colts defense has been over the course of the first couple of weeks, the run defense especially, this may be the opportunity where Caleb Williams can get some things going a little bit, where he's not playing a defense that we think is great.
There are certain things that we unexpectedly learn during football season. Yeet, the thing that I learned from Myles after week 1, because Anthony Richardson had the yeet throw to Alec Pierce. He had an anti-yeet throw last weekend against the Packers. It looked on the front end like it was going to be yeet until there were like 7 Packers waiting to catch the fly ball. They were like the kids at the home run derby, right? Here it comes. It's fun. It's fun if you're not a Colts fan. Watching Anthony Richardson play is fun if you're not vested in the outcome of each given play. It is a lot of fun. And he needs those reps. That was why him getting hurt last year was such a problem. He needed to work this stuff out because if he can ever, go the good way on a regular basis, he could really be something. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.